In this video, I want to show you how to construct this lap book. If you've never heard of a lap book, this is something that I associate with homeschool programs. A lot of homeschools use lap books to help their students with concepts and procedures, different things. But I developed this one for one of our adult ed teachers. She's teaching Introduction to Geometry. And I have this video set sort of at a wide angle so you can see this thing unfold, and I'm going to show you how to make one of these in just a minute. Actually, let me just start with that and then you'll see. I filmed this video once and I realized it was in portrait mode and it was very hard to see. So I've already done the cutting on this. I just took an old file folder and I'll try to reassemble it so you can see this was sort of the way it looked. And I cut off the tab thing down to, I wanted a perfectly straight edge right here. So I cut off this part. You can discard that, recycle it, whatever. And then I opened up the folder so it's this way. You still have this little curve down in this corner, but that's okay. It won't interfere with anything. And so here's the folder. And I folded it to the middle. So here's that middle crease. That would be the bottom of the file folder. So I folded this in here and then this in here, and I creased these very well so that I got a folder lap book. Now you've got some uneven edges here. I'm not too worried about that, but if you are, you can fix those how you want. But this is the actual book that students will use. Now this is floppy. This is the back side of the folder. So this is very flexible because it was originally a file folder. In my next one of these, I will reinforce this somehow. I'm working on ideas for that. But this is what you need. And this is just an old student file that we were going to throw away. This is the basis of this book. So one of our teachers, actually two of our teachers, are using the Introduction to Geometry. If you have the Tabe Tutor books, the series, this is from that book. This is the textbook and workbook level E. So this was written for students at about an NRS 1 or 2. This is a beginning level course. But because these students are adults, you can see that the vocabulary is quite extensive. Geometry has a lot of vocabulary. I believe there are 34 vocabulary words in here. I would not introduce these all in one day. I would introduce these in context as you work through the lessons. So for our particular program, we have an 8 class unit. So students are present for 4 weeks, 2 times a week. So here's week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4, roughly. So each of these pockets represents 1 class period. And these are just the foundation for the lesson, the Tabe Tutor series. So in the Tabe Tutor textbook, there is a lesson on 2-dimensional shapes, on quadrilaterals. That's where I got the labels for my pockets. So the lesson in Tabe actually consists of 7 pieces, and I just did a pocket for each one of those. This first one holds flashcards, and all of this is in the packet that I've sent to you. This is too many, in my opinion, for 1 unit, for 1 month. This is a lot. But with geometry, it's necessary. So for example, in this vocabulary list, and I intended to alphabetize it, but I forgot. That noise you hear is my ID badge. So let me make that stop hitting the table. The word formula. Here is the flashcard for formula. A formula is an expression that tells us how to do the math. It's a recipe to solve a problem. So I would spend time talking to my students about formulas and what they're for and why they're important. That one comes into play right here on the area day. Then we have the word edge, which is a three-dimensional word. It relates to a three-dimensional solid. A line where two faces meet. So that's going to be a three-dimensional word. The word three-dimensional, or term three-dimensional. Triangle, I introduced that one with a two-dimensional shape. So this is a good way for students to review where they, the word composite is a large shape composed or made up of smaller shapes. That one goes here. So you can see how a square could go here or here. You can use the card both days. This helps students gradually build the vocabulary that we want them to know. I was looking for, I think I introduced angle with perimeter, the place where two lines come together and we need to add both of those legs of the perimeter to get the total. You could certainly introduce it wherever you want to. A sphere. This is one that's not in the textbook, but I did use it in the section on solids. So those are the flashcards. And I'm going to put those to the side for just a minute. And I'll show you what's in the pockets. Starting with two-dimensional. One problem with this that I already see is that the pieces fly out the top. So in the next iteration of this thing, I need to make something that will keep that from happening. So that's one thing I know that needs to change. So this is the two-dimensional page, and I'm just going to move this out of the way. I gave students these shapes because these were the ones in the textbook. So it starts with a circle, and I would literally have them to write on here diameter and radius. You can flip this over and write anything else on the back that you want them to know about circles. Triangles. I would talk to them about the meaning of a dashed line in a geometry problem. Those are usually imaginary units, meaning they're there to mark the location, but they're not part of the calculation sometimes. So it's not a side, it's just showing you the height of the triangle. Pentagon, 5 sides. Hexagon, and then this is a trapezoid. This one is a quadrilateral. So you can add any information you want on the back. It's good for them to just hold these and work with them. I strongly encourage you to let them do their own cutting because they get the feel for what a hexagon feels like. And that's important for a lot of students. I'm one of those students. So this is your two-dimensional group. Your quadrilateral group comes out of here. There are a bunch of those down in there. I'm missing the rhombus. Again, my pockets need work. Okay, another thing you can do with this is have them to match the word to the shape so that they're actually getting practice matching these pieces. You can do all kinds of things here. These are the 4 pieces for quadrilateral. Here is the trapezoid again. I would have them to label the bases. This one doesn't have the right angles. The other one does, so sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. Talk about right angles. What's the difference between these two? Sorry, these two. Both have 2 sets of parallel sides, but this one has no right angles. So you can use these to compare shapes and contrast shapes. These are your quadrilaterals. And the textbook devoted a whole lesson to that, so I built that accordingly. Those go in there. Then you have some solids. I added the sphere and the cylinder, but I thought, why not? I would love to add an actual cube, and I still may do this a little bit later, that you could cut out and fold into a 3-dimensional cube. I think that would be a very good thing to add here. The color is not significant. It just depended on where I had space on the page to put these. So I printed each page on a different color. I did print all of the flashcards in white, just for easy readers. If you have students who have dyslexia, I would recommend this shade of yellow. That very light pastel color will help some of them. I am dyslexic, so I can say that with certainty, at least for me, that worked. Okay, this one where we talk about area in square units. I found these on the internet, and I gave you the source on the PDF file, but we actually learn about what area means by counting those squares. And then once they understand that concept, we move on to finding the area of rectangles using a formula. So this set of things lets the students transition from counting squares to applying that to a formula. And then eventually you don't need this anymore. You can just find the area. One thing I would have you to notice here, these are not perfect squares. And let me see if I can raise that up a little bit. I found these on the internet, and again, I provided the source for you, but tell students that these technically should be perfect squares for this to work. This one is more what I'm looking for, but these just did not come out as perfectly as they should have. This would be a good time to talk about exponents. If you wanted a 5 square, 5 by 5 is a 25. So you could very easily hand out graph paper and build some foundation for exponents and roots right here. The square root of 25 is 5 on each side. So this is a good visual for that. Okay. Then we get into some perimeter problems. I'm just going to put those to the side. These I found online. I did give you the source. They're just basic perimeter problems. Talk about what perimeter means. You could also talk about regular polygons and irregular polygons there. You could build a lot more into this if your students can handle that. And then the composites. You can pull these out, find the perimeters of these. Students who are ready, you could even find the areas of these. These are things that you could do. Perimeter or area would be fine. Okay, that is the lesson component of this. So each one of these is a day's worth of material, coordinates to the book on the tab. If you want to, and I did this, on the back side of this paper or folder, I glued a flip pocket. This is just a piece of cardstock that flips up and down. And I gave you some vocabulary practice. This is a multiple choice question. It does not need a period there. I see a mistake. That's not a sentence, it's just a phrase. But the clue is an expression that tells us how to do math. And of course, that is the word formula. Very closely matches the definition on here, but it's not exact. I didn't want it to be exact because I don't want students to just find these and find those answers. I want them to think about the choices and narrow that down. But there is one of those for every one of the vocabulary terms. This is up to number 34. And then I gave you a crossword puzzle with 34 clues. So, one across a box, so that's a prism, with rectangular faces. So this would be a rectangular prism. And again, you have the flashcards. The distance around a shape with angles, that's 4 across. That's going to be perimeter. So the definitions are still related. They're the same definitions that you have up here. So you can sort of use these two to help you figure out all of the answers. And again, if I had it to do over, and on my next one, I will bring this way, and you could absolutely do that. I cut a piece of cardstock down, folded a little strip of it right here so I could glue it. And that would fold down in here. It would help to hold those pieces in, and it also gives some stability to the book. So I'm learning as I go. You absolutely could do that. You could leave this off. If you don't want this flippy thing in there, that would be fine as well. But this is designed to be a month-long project. And students who miss days know that they're going to miss pieces. I am recording videos for our teachers to use for students who miss classes and need to get caught up. But you could set that however you wanted to. You could just say if you miss a class, you're missing a piece, however you feel that to be most appropriate. But I do welcome your feedback. If you have suggestions to help improve this process, I would love to hear them. If your students have suggestions to help improve this process, I would love to hear their ideas as well. But I hope you find something here that's useful. Even if you don't want to construct the folder, you can still print those resources if you would find them useful. Thank you for joining me, and I hope you have a really good day. Bye-bye.